Welcome, Stern Grovers from around the world, to the virtual education program presented by the Stern Grove Festival Association. I'm Dr. Jaz Sawyer, and I'm glad to be here for our very last session for Class 8, Part D. And today we're going to be talking about the style of funk music. So let's go ahead and begin. Today, drummers, we're going to be talking about funk music. And I know that sounds like a funny word, but it's also another word for groove. What funk music is groovy music that is combined with the soul. So you have a little bit of soul music and a little bit of groovy, and you get a real funky beat. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Some of the early innovators of funk music include James Brown, Shaka Khan, George Clinton in Parliament, Earth, Wind & Fire, and the list goes on. As we learned in an earlier class about the roots of rock and roll and how that shaped American music, right around the end of the 1960s, early 1970s, all the way to the 1980s, funk music would really drive America to another level. And quite simply, funk music goes directly to the soul and makes you move and groove. So we're going to do some examples of some funk patterns. That way you are able to identify that style at the next Stern Grove Festival or wherever you find live music. We're going to get right into some funk patterns, and some of these are based off two drummers that work with the great James Brown, John Jabbo Starks and the great Clyde Stubblefield. And the drummer Clyde Stubblefield was really one of the funk innovators. He understood other styles of playing, which he started out early on, like doo-wop, rhythm and blues, and jazz. So he was well versed in getting the good sounds out of the instrument, but also really giving his all when he plays the instrument. In one of our earlier classes, we talked about rock and roll, rhythm and blues, and how all that came together. So from the 1960s, the music starts to change a little bit. It gets away from the type of pop, doo-wop type of grooves, right? Like this. And in Detroit, the Motown sound would pioneer that rhythm and blues and soul music to the top of the charts. But there was something else happening, and the music changed a little bit. So what happens, what the drummer is doing is changing up the hi-hat and maybe do a little couple extra things on the snare drum to give it a twist. So let's try some of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see, I was using an open hi-hat sound. So that just gives me more possibilities to try other things. Let's try something else. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Two, three, four. One, two, three, four. One of the things that makes funk music so distinctive is that groove and how it makes you feel. And you'll probably notice you can hear a little bit of the early hip hop sound in there. And what I mean by that is the drums. A lot of the early DJs and beat makers in the 1980s sampled the drummers, sometimes the beats, and just the sounds to create their own beats. And that's what we call break beats. Break beats are really drum beats made up of samples or original music and putting it all together to make it funky, right? For a breakdown or maybe a different section of a song, right? For your arrangement, as we talked about earlier in our classes. So that's how that can be used. And just simply playing the drums and breaking that down, you can actually have something really cool. So for example, if I take a basic funk groove and then I take my rim shot and maybe add a few more rhythms over here, I might get a hip hop beat that you would hear in the early 1990s or early 2000s, like this. And that is correct. Hip hop was born out of rhythm and blues, rock and roll, funk, and soul music. And that shows you the evolution and the possibilities of rhythm, coming up with all kind of different styles. One, two, three, four. 3, 4. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four. 'The origins of funk music come from all over the United States. And we mentioned earlier about some of the pioneers of rock and roll and R&B such as Fats Domino. We have to go back to New Orleans. Now, one of the funkiest drummers of all time who held the chair most famously with the Meters, the Neville Brothers, and many others is Zigaboo Modelise. And he was a really funky drummer that used that New Orleans sound with the 3/2 clave, the Latin tinge, the Caribbean influence. He used it all and really mixed it up like gumbo, and that's why it really sounded so funky. Let's try some New Orleans funk patterns, and I want you to keep in mind our 3/2 clave. Bop, 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 boom, boom, bop, 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 boom, boom. So Mr. Zigaboo, affectionately known all over the world, also brought that culture of New Orleans, the rhythms and the Indian grooves of the Mardi Gras Indians, as well as the brass bands, the early R&B, the Caribbean, the Latin tinge, jazz. He brought it all together and really made it something special. One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. Two, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now it's your time to solo. So I think you all know the routine by now. I'm going to play 2 measures of time, and then you're going to solo for 2 measures. Okay? And remember, if you have more than one soloist, be sure to take turns. Are you ready to get funky with the groove? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2. Solo. Solo. Time. 2. Next solo. 1. Back in. Next solo. 3. 4. 2, 3. Back in. Next solo. Keep going. Next time. Next solo. 1, 2. Here we go. Next solo. I'll end on 1. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. Solo. Solo. Back in. Here we go. Good. Solo. Back in. Solo. 2, 3, 4. 4, 2, 3. Next solo. 1, 2, 4, 2, 3. Back in. Two, 3, 4. All together on 1. Congratulations, drummers. You have completed Class 8, Part D of our musical styles from the virtual education program. And all this has been made possible by the Stern Grove Festival Association. And I'd personally like to thank all of the crew and my fellow instructors for doing such great instructional videos for you all that you can have fun with your family and learn and discover music as best way you can. So again, I encourage you to go to sterngrove.org, not only to check out the education program, but still get some tickets to the festival while you can. Now that you have learned some of the music styles you'll be familiar with, you'll be able to identify them right away. Just before we go, I want to give you a few recommendations of some classic funk albums that you need to check out. The first one is I Feel Good, and that has its own unique groove that we tried in our patterns earlier. And the second one is The Big Payback, really funky groove right in the pocket, as they say. Also, I want you to check out Tell Me Something Good by the great Shaka Khan. Of course, you need to check out Atomic Dog by George Clinton and Parliament. And I want you to check out something called the Sissy Strut, and that's by the great funk group from New Orleans, the Meters. And I want to leave you a couple recommendations for hip-hop grooves that really capture the essence of the funk, the groove, and the music moving forward. The first one is Run's House by Run DMC, and you can hear that sample of Clyde Stubblefield playing that really fantastic, world-famous drum beat. And the second one is The Light, and that's a song by the rapper Common and produced by the legendary producer Jay Dilla. We've had a lot of fun over these last few weeks, so I want you to go back and check out some of the videos. And remember, everyone learns at their own pace. So take your time absorbing some of the grooves, some of the cool things that we did, and refreshing yourself with the musical elements we need to play music, such as dynamics, how soft or loud we play, tempo, how slow or fast we play. Also considering our musical arrangement. Who will start the song? Is there an introduction? Is there a breakdown? So just to give you an idea of how to understand how music is put together. Also use the recommended recordings as a way to help you discover new artists and musicians so that you're able to identify different music styles. So signing off for the last time from our 8-week sessions, I'm Dr. Jaz Sawyer. Thank you all for being with me, and I look forward to seeing your progress, and I hope to see you all soon safely. Remember to practice slow, have fun, and always stay in the groove.